Welcome back to the online Women's Basketball Summit. Today's guest is Dave the Bandman Schmitz. Dave Schmitz is the founder and co-owner of Resistance Band Training. He has been writing, teaching, and training for over 20 years on how to implement band training for general conditioning and sports performance. We will be talking today about training the female basketball player with bands. Dave, it is a pleasure to have you on the call.
Oh, Jen, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, but this is going to be a great one because this is something near and dear to my heart. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this. So let's get going.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you. So let's, so I obviously know you. I've known you probably for a good 8 years, but let's tell everyone listening, your background as a physical therapist, how you discovered bands, and what you're doing today.
Yeah, okay. I started as a physical therapist in 1986. I worked strictly in orthopedics, so I got a chance to really work with a lot of orthopedic-related injuries, ACLs, shoulders, all that stuff. Worked in a private practice, so I had complete autonomy to do what I wanted to do with my clients and patients. The only rule was get them better. And so as long as we got them better, everybody was happy. And so that started in 1986. I was a therapist for 22 years. I still am now, but I practice only privately. So I only see people privately. Most of the time, that's people that have gone through therapy, didn't get where they wanted to go, and kind of came back to me and said, hey, can you get me to this level? And we do that. And so that's really what I see now. I graduated in 1986, both with my physical therapy, athletic training certification, picked up my performance enhancement certification, my CSCS a couple of years later, brought it all together and started seeing where it was going to take me. In 1996, came across bands, and that opened up a huge world that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But that kind of got me going. I started using bands completely in rehab. So it was just, when I rehab somebody, I would rehab them with my hands, my eyes, and my bands, and literally just in an open room. And so learned a ton from patients that were injured, because what I did is I kind of worked backwards. I said, okay, you're injured. How did you get there? How did we get you back to feeling good and moving great? Okay, now let's apply all of that information before you get hurt, and let's see what happens. And lo and behold, what happened was resistance band training systems. And that was the start of it. So everything that I learned as a therapist, I brought into resistancebandtraining.com and resistance band training systems. 2008, decided it was time. I had to make a choice. Do I want to go into business? Do I want to stay a therapist in a clinic? I said, you know what? I'm going to take on this business stuff and see what happens. My wife and I teamed up, and we opened up and got resistancebandtraining.com started. That's about the time you and I probably met, was right around that time.
Yep.
And, from there, it's just been learn every week, every month, how to not only get people better with bands, and when I say people, I mean athletes, fitness enthusiasts, senior citizens, professional athletes, college athletes, high school athletes. It really doesn't matter, because movement is movement. And, we've had a lot of fun doing it, and it's allowed me to, on a personal note, grow up with my kids, because by the time we opened up the company, my kids were in middle school, junior high, and I could grow up with them through some pretty fun years. And so it's been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun.
So Dave and I met because we go to similar workshops and conferences, and he always seems to put on a band training before the conference actually starts, and that's how we met. I would take his workouts. I love his energy. I love the way he coaches with the bands. But the one thing, and we can touch on this later, that I love is that he's constantly giving new content, new video. He's always trying to get better with bands. So that's one of the things I admire about him. I also love that he trains female athletes and he trains female basketball players with the bands. So let's talk about your experience training the female athlete, training the female basketball player, and you use all bands in your training, or are there some Olympic lifting with the barbell, kettlebell, stuff like that?
Yes. The answer to the question is yes. What we try to do is with our female athletes, specifically the basketball players, my goal, number one, is to not just make them, be able to decelerate, but they have to be able to decelerate in a reactive environment. And so let me go back just a little bit, Jen, to give you an insight on why resistance bands, I think, fit the female athlete so well.
Sounds good.
With resistance bands, you are working with an ascending resistance. That ascending resistance is going to allow you to change speeds of movement. Gravity-dominated free weights, I can't do that with. So that's the first thing it allows me to do. The second thing it allows me to do is create force patterns or force vectors against the body that are going to be consistent with what the body feels when they're playing on the floor. Can't do that with free weights. The third thing it allows me to do is it allows me to go ahead and drive muscles to respond the way I want them to. And when I was in physical therapy, the thing I realized that became a real big strategy, the reason I became successful is when I learned not to tell a muscle not to try to cue a customer or a patient on what I want them to do, but instead put them in a band and just make them move and let the band drive them to become reactive. And by doing that, I bypassed the brain and let muscles start responding the way they're supposed to. So I know that's a lot, but you need to understand that, because now when I talk about what we do with our girls in the in-season, off-season, preseason, whatever, it will make more sense with bands. So now getting back to your really question, what do I do with our girls? Our girls train in bands every day.
Okay.
They train in bands using it three ways. Number one, we use it to develop first step speed acceleration and first step speed deceleration. And that's a big one because most people only do the first and not the second. We use them to go ahead and develop auxiliary strength work exercises that make them move in multiple planes and get them to have to learn how to train in multiple planes. And then the third way we use them is we use them to go ahead and improve flexibility and mobility. However, in the female athlete, girls basketball specifically, what I find is the flexibility component is not nearly as important as the stability component. So we put a lot of emphasis into what I call accelerated eccentric training, where they have to learn how to decelerate their body, being driven by a speed that they're not typically able to create. And that was the biggest thing I saw in rehab, was when I started to investigate these ACL programs. All I saw were exercises where girls were asked to jump or hop or land on one leg, but it was their body weight they were being challenged with. Mm. Jen, in the game of basketball, you have this thing called momentum, and it's caused by girls flying around the court and reacting to a basketball, an opponent, what have you. We need to recreate that environment in order for them to be truly training deceleration. And bands allow me to go ahead and recreate that exact same scenario in the training room, in the weight room, and even on the court if I want to. Yeah. So that's how we kind of get started with. I'd like, I have specifics, and we can jump into specifics of exactly what I do, but we want our girls to be not only butt strong and core strong, but they have to be able to use those muscles in a reactive, fast-paced deceleration mode for me to really be excited about them going into the season.
So what you're kind of touching on will lead me into the next question, which is, knee injuries, the ACL epidemic right now that's happening. You touched upon deceleration, which I think is one of the things we need to address with our girl basketball players. You talked about training in multiple, kind of planes of motion. The game of basketball you're moving around constantly, you're pivoting, you're planting. So let's touch upon more like kind of your thoughts about injury prevention training with bands, but also your thoughts about what's going on with kind of the ACL epidemic right now.
Well, I think the biggest thing, what's really interesting, Jen, about 5 weeks ago, I was at the IYCA summit, and I spoke to a lady that has a company that what they do is they have determined the speed that a muscle has to respond in order for an ACL to be prevented. All right. The speed of that is like 0.5 milliseconds. It's insanely fast.
Yeah.
So when it comes to an ACL, if all we're doing is teaching athletes how to decelerate, land with their body weight, we're not even close to the speed that they have to become reactive with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, baby steps have to come. So you have to learn how to squat before you can squat jump, and you got to learn how to stabilize before you can get into aggressive movements. I get that. But all I see is people kind of stopping at that hop point or that body weight standing point. So what I've established is we're going to take girls and we're going to put them in a very small resistance band, and we're going to make them shuffle, backpedal, turn and go, accelerate out, hop, jump, do all these kind of movements. We're going to start with very small amplitude of movement, maybe one step. And we're going to start with a 10-pound band. And just like in weight training, we're going to keep bringing them up. We're going to increase the amplitude of movement. We're going to increase the resistance of the band. We're going to increase the vector force that's being pulled on them. We might even add another vector in to make them have to handle 2 vectors. We're going to, it's pretty endless how far you can take them up. But the good news is you don't have to get them to the ultimate level to keep them safe. If you just go through like the first, I have a 6-week quick kids program. If you go through the first 4 weeks of that and you can get girls into that, you're probably gold. You're really going to cut down on that. But that's my take on ACLs. We know how fast it has to happen to protect them, but we're not training them fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because partly there's probably a fear factor there, Jen, a little bit. You take college level athletes that are on scholarship, you get a little nervous making them go fast. What if they get hurt? But the problem is with bands, I see way too many people thinking, let's put them in the big bands and just make them go crazy. Well, would you have somebody squat 400 pounds if they can only squat 200? No. So it's the same thing. And so I think the progressions have to be understood. And that's why I'm so excited about this, because I think we can start shining some light on band training as a progressive training tool and not just a simple tool that's used here and there for whatever different reasons. That's what I'm trying to get away from if I can.
I think you touched on a couple great points. Number one is we need to build a foundation in our athletes.
Right.
And I think a lot of the athletes that we see, and then also they have zero IQ when it comes to strength training. They have no kind of background. So we need to build the foundation. But once we build the foundation, we then need to kind of take it to the next level and I always use the bands with my athletes when we do partner band stuff, and we can send them some links below the interview where they're doing the shuffling, they're doing the turn and go, we do the backpedaling. But again, it takes a little bit to get there because we got to build the foundation. We want to teach them how to decelerate, which you do a fantastic job of teaching, but I think a lot of coaches out there are unfamiliar with the band training and what you do and what I do. So you have touched on this, but let's touch on it a little bit more. How do you, when you get, if I come to you, I'm a female basketball player, I have no experience in the weight room, how do you want to implement band training with me?
I'm going to start, number one, by getting you to start learning how to accelerate in the bands first. Nobody gets hurt accelerating. Everybody gets hurt decelerating. So I'm pretty confident that if I put you in a pair of bands and we start training you to be 2-step and 3-step fast in bands, I'm good with that. While you're learning that, I'm going to get a better baseline on your strength, because absolute strength will be what we need in conjunction with the band training. So, I mean, I'm going to kind of bypass the absolute strength, but your audience needs to understand this. We're going to squat, we're going to deadlift, we're going to push press, we're going to move barbell weight. I do that. So if they think I don't, I want to make sure they're clear on that. But outside of that, that's not what you're asking. What you're asking is, what would I do in bands?
Yep.
I would accelerate her first. I would teach her core stability work and hip stabilization work by using the bands in auxiliary strength training. Squat rows, single leg squat rows, single arm pushes, core stabilization, resisted planks. I would do it. There's a series of auxiliary exercises that are one band that she can do anywhere, anytime. That would be what I teach her. Once she understands the acceleration component of the band, now what I do is I go ahead and I flip it. And now we start working on gradual deceleration, 1 step, then 2 step. And 1 step is basically just a lunge. 2 step is putting 2 quick lunges together, you know, and hopefully that people can understand that if I say it that way. It's obviously done much faster. Again, we start small band, short amplitude, and working on speed that she can handle. But once they get the footwork down and you have them in the right size band, you'll be amazed at how quickly they start to respond. Once I can get the deceleration part going, now I bring it all together and I have them do what's called the full drill, where they'll accelerate out, accelerate back. The key to teaching all of this is building in pauses at the key components of the movement. Here's an example. If your coaches and people that are watching are thinking, think of the idea of shuffling. Okay, they're going to shuffle out against the band and stop. They're going to pause. And the reason I pause them there is so that they can consciously think, okay, I got to move my correct foot in this direction. Well, the foot they're moving is their deceleration foot. So they're putting that foot outside the box and protecting themselves. Perfect. So eventually, as they start showing that that's becoming a memory, then we go ahead and take the pause away. And eventually we don't let them pause. And when they're not pausing anymore, we know they've mastered the drill. Then the fourth and final stage is this. No more thinking, only reacting. So now what we do is we bring in reaction by making them have to react off my hand signs, off of competing against another athlete, off of throwing the ball at them and they got to accelerate to the ball. Lots of different ways to make them reactive. But that has been the formula that has worked absolutely perfect. And it's taken me the last four years we've been using that formula. Prior to that, I played around with it a lot, trying to figure it out, but that's the formula we use. And you can use it on every single locomotion movement an athlete will use. Shuffling, back pedal, forward run, turn and goes, crawling, jumping, hopping. I don't care what it is. You can use them on all of them, and it's worked out really well.
So for all the listeners out there, obviously Dave loves using the band for training female athletes, and I do too. But I think kind of the biggest takeaway, if someone's listening and they don't train with bands, is that we're all in agreement that girl basketball players need to strength train. They need to focus on deceleration. We need to work on, core. We need to work on their glutes. But in general, they just need to be in the weight room and they need to strength train. So I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway that I think someone should take. I mean, we are, Dave would like you to train with bands, but as long as we're trying to get the female athletes in the weight room, I think that's a good starting point. Because you know this as well as I do, getting the female athletes, especially basketball players, in the weight room, it's a hard thing sometimes. They just want to be on the court working on their skill. So I'm sure you've had experience that. Do you, what have you had success getting your girl basketball players off the court and kind of in the weight room to work on their skill development?
You mean their strength development?
Yeah, the strength development.
Absolutely. Hey, I go ahead and I create this environment with our girls that I'm going to get them really strong. And if I get them really strong, they're going to be able to go out and kick some tail. And it sounds very simple, and it may sound like I'm kind of a muscle head when I say that, but I've learned with the girls and the female athletes, their psychology is, at least in the high school environment, the weight room's a little scary. And so they come into it, they have to have success right away. And so we make sure that the movements we show them, squatting, push pressing, and deadlifting, are all successful, guaranteed success. Once I do that and they have success, now I go up to them and say, okay, there's only one way you're going to get better in here. Let's put some weight on the bar and let's get after it. But you need to tell me where you're at and how you're feeling. And so I always give them that open opportunity. So when we walk in the weight room, our girls basketball players know how to squat, front and back. They know how to deadlift. We vary the deadlift based on their height. If I've got some 6'2", 6'3" girls, we squat them differently and deadlift them differently than 5'10" girls or 5'8" girls. So your audience needs to understand that, but they still deadlift and they still squat and they still push press. And as soon as they have mastered the movement, man, I let them start to get after it, but we never let them go below. Early on, it's usually nothing less than 3 reps, usually 6. They never go below 3. My daughter, who now goes to college, she didn't ever do a single for me. She just came back from college and they had her do a single, and she was like blown away what she could do. And I said, well, I knew you could do that. I just didn't want you to have that on your back when you were a sophomore and a junior in high school. It's not necessary. Muscle memory is still huge for these girls. 3s, 4s, 5-rep stuff is good. But here's where the bands come in. I can now make them learn how to accelerate the bar faster by doing auxiliary lifts in bands, because the band is going to get tougher as they squat, tougher as they push press, tougher as they deadlift. So they learn how to accelerate the movement.
Yeah.
So now when they go back under the bar, no bands attached, they know how to accelerate the bar quickly, and that's what we're looking for.
So everyone listening, and in case they're a little confused on what he's talking about, so if they have a barbell, like in the clean position, there's bands on it. So when they push press it up, the band's gonna give them the resistance. That's what he's talking about. In case everyone. Actually,
Jen, no, we don't put the bands on the bars.
Okay.
What we do is they lift the bar by themselves.
Okay.
And with weight.
Yeah.
Then as an auxiliary lift.
Oh,
with a band only.
Oh, see, I misunderstood you too. So there you go. I'm glad we clarified that.
Yeah. So we never combine the two together with the girls because it's too complicated. We only have them lift with bars, or we only have them lift with bands. We don't combine two. It's a great thing to do, but it's not necessary.
Got it. I'm glad you clarified, and I'm sorry that I misunderstood.
No. I just wanted to make sure, because that's a great technique. But in the high school level, you'll struggle trying to do that with the girls early on. And again, build success.
Yeah. So we were talking about this earlier. For everyone listening, I spoke to a couple strength coaches from local Division I colleges. One of them was UConn. And she's basically kind of saying the same thing Dave is. We want the big lifts. We want the squat. We want the deadlift. Some sort of push, so bench press, push press. For everyone listening, our girl basketball player should definitely have those 3 lifts in their workouts. And then obviously other stuff, but I just wanted to highlight that you're basically repeating what strength coaches keep saying: squat, deadlift, and then some sort of push.
Awesome.
So let's touch on a little bit. I know you're big in kind of the injury prevention. You do a lot of mobility and stability work. What are your thoughts on in-season training for these girl basketball players? Because obviously they're playing a ton of basketball. I believe they should be lifting in season. But what are your thoughts on that, and what do you like to do with the athletes in season? Number one, to keep them healthy, but also to keep their strength.
Great question. We've done this now for about 5 years with our high school team. And I'm really excited to tell you we haven't had an ACL in 5 years. So either we're blessed or we're doing a little bit of something right. But what we do is, you kind of heard my preseason, off-season training concepts. Now when we get into the in-season, the only thing we change is volume. We drop volume way down, but we stay with the same movement patterns. We still squat, and we will squat either for we'll either squat for time, or we'll squat for reps. And if we squat for reps, it's usually we squat because we want to go a little heavier. If we squat for time, it's because I want to just keep driving home the muscle memory component of it, and I don't want them putting a lot of weight on their body. So we'll do that for squatting, and we'll do that for push pressing. We will not barbell deadlift during the season. Too much pounding already on their body. They don't need to deadlift. What we will do instead is we will do a dumbbell or a kettlebell single arm type deadlift where they can let their hips open up more, and it's much safer on their low back.
Now, how many days a week are you guys training in season?
Perfect. Great question. We lift 1 day a week, traditional lifting with some band auxiliary lifts. We then lift 1 day a week where we do a circuit-based time workout. 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. They work in partners, and we have 7 stations. And we'll hit those 7 stations using, again, typically bands, body weight, balls, dumbbells, those types of things. It's designed to be kind of early on in the season, it's a metabolic conditioning workout. As the season goes on, it becomes more of a speed power workout. We decrease the load, we decrease the volume, and we want them to just go as fast as they can for like 10 seconds or 15 seconds. And then they get a 45-second rest. So that's how we'll progress it in season.
Awesome. I know you and I have chat off the interview a little bit, and you were telling me how you're coming up with a basketball like cheat sheet. You have a workshop coming up. Do you want to touch upon that and explain that a little bit?
It's real simple. When people order from us and become a customer of ours, they often ask me, Dave, do you have workouts or programs for basketball or for golf or for soccer or whatever the sport is? And the problem is, Jen, that I train athletes. And so I get nervous about giving a basketball coach basketball-related exercises because I want their athletes to stay athletic. So what I came up with was a basketball cheat sheet. And these are exercises that I would recommend their basketball players do during the season, off season, in season. And they're broken into 3 areas. In basketball, we break it into first step speed. We break it into, and that's also going to include deceleration work. We break it into fundamental strengthening. And when I say fundamental, I just want them working on just general strength training with the bands. And then the third and final thing is a plyometric component. And I kind of put that last because, again, if it's in season, I don't really want them jumping anymore. They're jumping enough. But if it's off season and they want to work on vertical jump training and some lateral jump training, I put that in there. And then what I do at the bottom is give them 4 or 5 simple workouts they can apply or implement using the videos above. So every exercise has a video. It's put into a category. And then at the end, they have a workout. So if they're looking for a simple 1-band strength workout, here it is. If they're looking for a 15-minute first step speed workout, here it is. And so I think what that'll do is it will give people and coaches a starting point. And it's real simple. It's 2 pages, it's videos, and it's a program. That's it. I don't want it to be elaborate. And when they purchase from us, the cool thing is we have this thing called the Resistance Band Customer Hub, which you're maybe familiar with as well. But all of our customers get it. So as soon as they purchase, if they email me and say, Dave, do you have any basketball related drills or programs I can follow? I can literally go to them and say, just put it into your customer hub. Go ahead and get it. It's yours. Thank you. And so it's quick and easy, and I can do that for them. And it's going to be fun because now I can finally provide something of better direction for our customers. But you won't see these on my site selling them. I don't want to sell them. I just want you to learn. And as a reward or a gift from me for buying from us, I'm going to give you that and get you going on that.
So we'll put the link down below from this interview so that anyone's interested, they can check it out. So Dave, we've covered a wide range of topics, and you and I could probably chat for another hour. But is there anything you kind of want to go over, kind of sum up as we end this call in a little bit?
You know, I think the biggest thing is your list is girls basketball performance athletes, coaches, trainers. All I would ask them to do is give me a shot. If they've never heard about us or they've never heard about training with bands the way we train, please come to our site and look. If they have questions, email me, because you email me and you get me.
He'll answer you guys back.
I'll answer you back. And if they do that, I honestly don't care if they ever buy from us. I will hope that they will start looking at the training, because like I told you, Jen, before we came on air, I have 3 or 4 girls now at the Division I level that are dominating and doing great. And they went in as freshmen right from the get-go, were ready to go. And you don't see that. And the biggest thing I'm hearing back from them is, Coach, the band training combined with you showing us these simple strength training drills of squat, deadlift, and push press, we can blow anybody away. And it's the combination of the two. It's not one or the other. It's the combination too. And, you know, knock on wood, they've all been able to stay healthy, which is the biggest thing, you know, in basketball. If you can stay healthy, you can do a lot of things. So let's hope that keeps going for them. I would just ask your audience to give me a chance to talk to them and show them. And it's free, so it's no risk on their part at all. That's all I'd ask.
So if the audience wants to check you out, where can they find you?
They should go to resistancebandtraining.com. That will get them into the site. They should go to the blog post if they want to learn. But there's tons of places to learn on the site. If they want to get specifics and ask me questions, they can do it multiple ways, but the easiest way is dave@resistancebandtraining.com. Just dave@resistancebandtraining.com goes directly to me. And as you know, I'll get back to them probably within 24 hours or less.
Great. So Dave, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. Guys, he dropped some great information. Please go check out his site. If you're using resistance bands, this is the gentleman you need to talk to. He's the best in the business. I use his bands for all my female athletes. I talk to him a lot, and I always learn something from him every time, which I find that's rare nowadays when you're talking to a strength coach. So Dave, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thanks for the time. It was a great opportunity, and I enjoyed it.
Thanks.